The crystalline spires of Kelthara Prime gleamed under the twin suns, their surfaces reflecting the nervous energy that filled the planetary council chambers. Ambassador Zyraketh smoothed her azure-scaled hands over her ceremonial robes as she reviewed the documents one final time. The marriage contract lay before her, written in both Keltharan script and the crude markings humans called English. "You understand what this means?" High Chancellor Mordoon's voice carried the weight of centuries. His ancient eyes, clouded with age but sharp with intelligence, studied Zyraketh from across the polished obsidian table. "This is not merely a political alliance. You are binding yourself to a creature we barely comprehend." Zyraketh nodded, her bioluminescent crest dimming with uncertainty. "The humans have agreed to cease their expansion into our territory. Their fleet will stand down from the Outer Rim conflicts. In exchange, I will marry one of their representatives and serve as a bridge between our peoples." She paused, her throat sacs pulsing with suppressed emotion. "It is a small sacrifice for lasting peace." "Small?" Chancellor Vorthek's mandibles clicked in agitation. "You speak of sacrificing yourself to an alien species that emerged from nowhere and conquered half the galaxy in less than 50 cycles. These humans, they are not like us. They do not follow the ancient codes of warfare. They fight without honor, without restraint." The chamber fell silent, except for the gentle hum of the environmental systems. Through the transparent walls, Zyraketh could see the human fleet hanging in orbit above their world. Massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons she couldn't pronounce, their dark hulls scarred from countless battles. Each ship was a monument to human ingenuity and brutality. "They have agreed to send their representative tomorrow," High Chancellor Mordoon continued. "Captain Marcus Chen of the Terran Colonial Fleet. According to their files, he is a decorated officer with an exemplary service record. No history of violence against civilian populations." "How reassuring," Vorthek muttered, his crest flashing irritation. "A human who has not yet committed genocide." Zyraketh studied the holographic projection of Captain Chen floating above the table. He appeared unremarkable by human standards. Medium height, dark hair, eyes the color of Earth's oceans. His face bore the quiet confidence she had observed in other human officers, but there was something else there. A depth that seemed to hint at vast reserves of untapped potential. "He volunteered for this assignment," she said quietly. "When the peace negotiations began, he personally requested to serve as the human representative. That suggests a genuine desire for peace, does it not? Or it suggests he has ulterior motives?" Chancellor Vorthek replied. "Humans are deceptive by nature. They smile while planning destruction. They speak of peace while sharpening their weapons." High Chancellor Mordoon raised a weathered hand for silence. "The decision has been made. The Galactic Council has approved this arrangement. We have exhausted all other diplomatic options. The humans refuse to negotiate through traditional channels, and our military cannot match their technological advantages." Zyraketh remembered the reports from the Battle of Centauri Gate. 3 human ships had engaged an entire Keltharan battle fleet and emerged victorious, not through superior numbers or advanced shields, but through tactics so unconventional they bordered on madness. The humans had used their own damaged vessels as kinetic weapons, ramming them into Keltharan dreadnoughts at near light speed. It was brilliant and terrifying in equal measure. "There is something else," High Chancellor Mordoon continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Our intelligence services have gathered disturbing information about Captain Chen specifically." The holographic display shifted, showing classified military records that made Zyraketh's blood run cold. Images of devastated planets, readings from weapons tests that defied comprehension, and most chilling of all, testimony from survivors of human military operations. Before accepting this diplomatic assignment, Captain Chen commanded the UES Retribution, Mordoon explained, a ship equipped with experimental human technology. During the siege of Proxima Colony, his vessel single-handedly broke through Zephyrian siege lines that had held for 18 months. The enemy fleet simply vanished. No debris, no energy signatures, no survivors. What kind of weapons could accomplish such destruction? Zyraketh asked, though part of her dreaded the answer. That information is classified at the highest levels of the Terran government, Chancellor Vorthek replied grimly. What we do know is that Captain Chen has access to military secrets that could reshape the balance of power in this galaxy. By binding him to our family through marriage, we may be inviting a weapon of mass destruction into our midst. Zyraketh absorbed this information, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. She was not merely marrying for peace between two species, but potentially unleashing forces beyond her comprehension. The irony was not lost on her that in seeking to prevent war, she might be bringing something far more dangerous into their lives. Has he been informed of the full scope of this arrangement? She asked. Does he understand that this is not merely a ceremonial position? Captain Chen has been briefed on Keltharan marriage customs. High Chancellor Mordoon replied. He understands that in our culture, marriage creates bonds deeper than simple legal contracts. The joining of life forces, the sharing of consciousness during the bonding ritual, the permanent telepathic connection that will exist between you. He agreed to all of this? Without hesitation, Vorthek said, his tone suggesting he found this fact deeply troubling. Most humans refuse telepathic contact with other species. They consider mental privacy sacred. Yet Captain Chen immediately consented to a process that will give you direct access to his thoughts and emotions. The implications of this sent tremors through Zyraketh's nervous system. During the bonding ceremony, she would experience not just Marcus's surface thoughts, but the deepest layers of his psyche. If he truly harbored violent intentions toward her people, she would know instantly. But if he was genuinely committed to peace, that connection would also reveal the true extent of his capabilities. There is one more thing, High Chancellor Mordoon said, his ancient features grave with concern. Our psychic evaluators have attempted to scan Captain Chen from a distance. They report anomalies. His mental pattern does not conform to typical human baselines. There are layers of consciousness that seem to extend far beyond normal parameters. What does that mean? We are not certain. Perhaps it is simply the result of military conditioning or exposure to classified technology. Or perhaps Captain Chen is not entirely what he appears to be. The chamber's lights dimmed as Kelthara Prime's twin suns set beyond the horizon, casting long shadows across the polished floors. Somewhere above them, the human fleet maintained its silent vigil, a reminder of the delicate balance that hung on tomorrow's ceremony. Zyraketh stood and walked to the observation deck, gazing out at the stars that had once seemed so distant and peaceful. In just a few short years, those same stars had become highways for human expansion, bringing war and chaos to civilizations that had known centuries of stability. I will proceed with the ceremony, she announced, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. Whatever Captain Chen truly is, whatever secrets he carries, I will face them. Our people need this peace. High Chancellor Mordoon approached and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You understand that once the bonding is complete, there will be no way to sever the connection? You will be linked to this human for the remainder of your lives. I understand. And if he proves to be something other than what we expect? If the power he wields becomes a threat to our world? Zyraketh's crest flashed with determination. Then I will be the first to know, and the only one capable of stopping him. As night fell over Kelthara Prime, she remained at the observation deck, watching the human fleet's running lights blink in the darkness. Tomorrow would bring either salvation or damnation for her people. The human she was about to marry carried within him the potential for both, and she would soon discover which path destiny had chosen for them all. In the depths of space, Captain Marcus Chen stood alone on the bridge of the UES Retribution, studying the same stars through his own viewport. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, maintaining the ship's systems while their captain contemplated the momentous day ahead. Marcus had volunteered for this mission knowing full well what it would cost him. The telepathic bond would expose secrets he had kept hidden even from himself, revealing the true nature of the power that flowed through his veins. But perhaps it was time for the universe to know what humanity was truly capable of becoming. He thought of the weapon systems that lay dormant within his ship. technologies that existed at the very edge of physical law. He thought of the experiments that had changed him at the cellular level, transforming him into something that was no longer entirely human. Most of all, he thought of the promise he had made to bring peace to this corner of the galaxy, regardless of the personal cost. Tomorrow, when he bonded with Ambassador Zyraketh, she would see into the depths of his transformed soul. She would witness the godlike forces that human science had awakened within him, and perhaps, if he was fortunate, she would understand that sometimes the greatest weapons were also the most passionate advocates for peace. The stars watched in silent witness as two beings prepared to join their destinies, unknowing that their union would reshape the very fabric of galactic civilization. The bonding chamber at the heart of Kelthara Prime's ancient temple had witnessed thousands of ceremonies over the millennia, but never one quite like this. Crystalline formations grown over centuries channeled the planet's natural psychic energies into intricate patterns that danced across the walls, while bioluminescent organisms provided a gentle, shifting light that responded to the emotional states of those present. Zyraketh knelt on the traditional meditation platform, her ceremonial robes woven with threads that sparkled like captured starlight. Across from her, Captain Marcus Chen sat in the human equivalent posture, having removed his military uniform in favor of simple white garments provided by the temple priests. His calm demeanor masked the storm of energy that the most sensitive Keltharans could feel building around him. "The human's bioelectric field is unlike anything in our records," whispered High Priest Thalmor to his assistant. "The readings are off our scales." Elder Yarix, the most powerful telepath on Kelthara Prime, approached the couple with visible apprehension. Her centuries of experience had taught her to read the subtle emanations of consciousness. But the human before her defied all categorization. His mind appeared to exist on multiple levels simultaneously, with deeper layers that seemed to extend beyond normal space-time. "Ambassador Zyraketh," Elder Yarix began, her voice carrying the formal cadence of ancient ritual. "Do you freely accept the bond that will join your consciousness with this being, knowing that it will forever change the nature of your existence?" "I accept willingly," Zyraketh replied, though her hands trembled slightly as she spoke. "Captain Chen," the elder continued, "do you understand that this bond will expose every aspect of your mind to another being? Your memories, your fears, your deepest secrets will become as visible to your partner as your physical form?" Marcus met her gaze steadily. "I understand, and I accept all consequences." Elder Yarix nodded and began to weave the psychic energies that would forge the connection. As her power reached out to touch Marcus's mind, she gasped and nearly stumbled backward. The human's consciousness was vast beyond comprehension, filled with knowledge and power that made her feel like a child peering into the heart of a star. "Elder Yarix?" High Priest Thalmor stepped forward in concern. "What troubles you?" "Nothing troubles me," she replied, though her voice carried a note of awe. "Begin the ceremony." The ancient words flowed in the Keltharan sacred tongue as psychic energy began to build within the chamber. Zyraketh felt the familiar tingling sensation as her mind prepared to open to another consciousness. She had undergone similar procedures during her diplomatic training, but those had been brief, surface-level contacts. This would be permanent and complete. As the energy reached its crescendo, Zyraketh's awareness suddenly expanded beyond her physical body. She felt herself rushing through darkness toward a distant point of light that grew brighter with each passing moment. Then she made contact with Marcus's mind, and her world exploded into chaos. Memories cascaded through her consciousness like a raging torrent. She saw Marcus as a young man, volunteering for experimental military programs that pushed the boundaries of human endurance. She witnessed him undergoing procedures that infused his body with nanotechnology so advanced it bordered on magic. She felt his pain as the modifications tore through his cellular structure and rebuilt him into something new. But beneath the memories lay something far more overwhelming. Power. Raw, incomprehensible power that made the energy output of entire star systems seem trivial by comparison. It flowed through every fiber of Marcus's being, held in check by an iron will that had been forged through years of unimaginable discipline. Zyraketh saw flashes of what this power could accomplish. She witnessed test demonstrations where Marcus had manipulated gravity itself, bending space-time to create localized distortions that could crush matter at the quantum level. She saw him standing alone on the bridge of his ship, reaching out with his enhanced consciousness to touch the fabric of reality and reshape it according to his will. Most terrifying of all, she felt his emotional connection to this power. It wasn't simply a tool he wielded, but an integral part of his transformed biology. The nanites in his bloodstream were connected to quantum fields that existed outside normal dimensional boundaries. He had become a living conduit for forces that humanity was only beginning to understand. Yet, as she delved deeper into his psyche, Zyraketh discovered something that shocked her more than his godlike abilities. Beneath all that power, Marcus Chen was driven by an overwhelming desire to protect life. Every decision he had made, every enhancement he had accepted, every secret he had carried, was motivated by a desperate need to find alternatives to the endless cycle of war and death that plagued the galaxy. I volunteered for the modifications because I believed they would give me the strength to enforce peace, his thoughts echoed in her mind. I've seen too many worlds burn, too many civilizations destroy themselves over resources that could be shared. If I have to become something inhuman to stop the killing, then that's a price I'm willing to pay. The bond deepened, and Zyraketh found herself experiencing Marcus's memories from his perspective. She felt his grief as he watched orbital bombardments reduce thriving cities to radioactive craters. She shared his rage as he witnessed the aftermath of biological weapons that turned entire populations against each other. Most powerfully, she experienced his moment of decision when he had chosen to volunteer for Project Prometheus, the classified program that had transformed him into something beyond normal human limitations. The universe doesn't need another weapon, his memory voice whispered. It needs a guardian. As their minds merged more completely, Zyraketh began to understand the true scope of what Marcus had become. The nanites in his system were connected to a vast network of quantum processors that could manipulate matter and energy at the fundamental level. He could reach across interstellar distances to influence events in real time, using his consciousness as a bridge between normal space and the higher dimensional realms where physical laws became mere suggestions. But the most startling revelation came when she touched the deepest layers of his transformed psyche. Marcus wasn't just carrying advanced technology within his body. He was evolving into something that existed partially outside normal space-time. The modifications had opened pathways in his consciousness that connected him to the underlying structure of reality itself. "What have your people created?" she whispered through their mental link. "I don't think they fully understand it themselves," Marcus replied. The project was designed to create enhanced soldiers who could operate across multiple dimensional layers. What they actually created was something that might be the next step in human evolution. The ceremony continued around them as their consciousnesses intertwined on levels that transcended normal telepathic contact. Zyraketh found herself sharing not just Marcus's memories and emotions, but his transformed perceptions of reality. She could suddenly sense the quantum fluctuations that permeated all matter, feel the gravitational currents that flowed between stars, and perceive the vast web of energy that connected every living thing in the galaxy. "This is what you experience constantly?" she asked in wonder. "It's been growing stronger since the modifications," Marcus confirmed. "Sometimes I can sense events happening light years away. I can feel the birth of new stars and the death of old ones. The universe is so much more alive than most people realize." As their bond stabilized, Zyraketh became aware of new sensations flooding through her own nervous system. The connection was changing her as well, allowing her consciousness to expand beyond its normal limitations. She could feel her mental capabilities increasing exponentially as she gained access to the quantum-enhanced pathways in Marcus's mind. "The bond is transforming both of us," she realized with growing amazement. "I hoped it would," Marcus admitted. "The isolation has been difficult. Having someone who can share this perspective, who can understand what I've become, it means more than you know." Outside the bonding chamber, the assembled Kelthoran officials watched in growing alarm as energy readings spiked beyond anything their instruments could measure. The psychic emanations from the ceremony were so powerful they were causing resonance effects throughout the temple's crystal structures. "High Chancellor," one of the technicians reported urgently. "We're detecting gravitational anomalies centered on the bonding chamber. Space-time itself appears to be fluctuating." High Chancellor Mordun studied the readings with growing concern. "Is the temple in danger?" "We don't know, sir. These energy signatures are completely outside our understanding of physics." Inside the chamber, Elder Yarix continued the ritual despite her own shock at what she was witnessing. The human's consciousness was unlike anything she had encountered in centuries of telepathic work. It seemed to extend across multiple dimensions simultaneously, touching realms of existence that she had only read about in the most ancient texts. As the ceremony reached its conclusion, Zyriketh and Marcus opened their eyes to find themselves fundamentally changed. The bond between them was more than telepathic. It was a merger of consciousness that had created something entirely new. They could feel each other's thoughts and emotions as if they were their own. But more than that, they shared access to the enhanced capabilities that Marcus's modifications had created. "How do you feel?" Elder Yarix asked, though her voice carried a note of awe that suggested she already knew the answer. Zyriketh stood slowly, marveling at the new sensations flowing through her nervous system. She could perceive energy patterns that had been invisible before, sense the quantum fluctuations that underlay all matter, and feel her consciousness extending beyond the normal boundaries of her physical form. "Different," she replied simply. "Enhanced." Marcus rose as well, and for the first time since his transformation, he felt truly complete. The bond with Zyriketh had given him an anchor point for his expanding consciousness, a way to channel and focus the vast energies at his command. "The bonding is complete," Elder Yarix announced to the assembled witnesses. "Ambassador Zyriketh and Captain Chen are now joined by bonds that transcend the physical realm." As they left the chamber together, neither the new couple nor the watching officials fully understood what they had just witnessed. The bonding ceremony had created something unprecedented in galactic history, a merged consciousness that combined Keltharan psychic abilities with human quantum enhancement technology. In the days that followed, as news of the successful ceremony spread throughout both civilizations, the true implications of what had occurred began to emerge. Reports started arriving from across the galaxy of unusual phenomena, centered around locations where Marcus and Zyriketh focused their attention. Solar flares that followed mathematical patterns, asteroid belts that rearranged themselves into perfect geometric formations, and most disturbing of all, enemy fleets that simply vanished from existence when they threatened peaceful worlds. The human they had married for peace was indeed becoming a force of godlike destruction. But his targets were those who would disrupt the harmony he and his new wife had sworn to protect. The question that began to trouble leaders across the galaxy was simple but terrifying. What would happen when beings with such power decided that the universe itself needed to be reshaped in the image of their shared vision of peace? 3 months after the bonding ceremony, the galaxy began to understand that the marriage between Ambassador Zyriketh and Captain Marcus Chen had fundamentally altered the balance of power across known space. The first sign came when the Vorthan Empire, notorious for their slave trading operations, discovered that their entire fleet had been relocated to the edge of a black hole. No shots had been fired. No warnings given. One moment they were preparing to raid a peaceful colony world, the next they found themselves trapped in the gravitational well of a stellar graveyard. The message that followed was broadcast across all communication channels in perfect Vorthan. "Slavery is incompatible with galactic harmony. Choose rehabilitation or oblivion." Grand Admiral Kazith of the Vorthan fleet stared at his sensor readings in disbelief. His massive dreadnoughts, each capable of reducing planets to rubble, hung helplessly in space while unknown forces prevented their engines from functioning. When his communications officer finally established contact with the source of their predicament, the view screen revealed a sight that would haunt him for the remainder of his life. Captain Marcus Chen stood alone on the bridge of his ship, but he was no longer entirely human in appearance. Patterns of light flowed beneath his skin like living circuits, and his eyes held depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. Beside him, Ambassador Zyriketh's form had also transformed, her natural bioluminescence now pulsing in harmony with the energy patterns that surrounded her husband. "You have a choice to make," Marcus said, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated directly with the quantum fields surrounding the Vorthan vessels. Release your slaves, abandon your raids, and join the growing alliance of civilized worlds. Or remain here until your ships become part of the black hole's accretion disk. You dare threaten the Vorthan Empire? Grand Admiral Kazeth snarled. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Our fleets have brought order to entire sectors. Your fleets brought suffering and death, Zyraketh replied, her telepathic voice echoing in the minds of every Vorthan crew member simultaneously. We offer you the chance to bring something better. Through their shared consciousness, Marcus and Zyraketh reached out across the galaxy to touch the minds of every slave held in Vorthan captivity. With a precision that defied conventional understanding of physics, they began to manipulate space-time itself, creating instantaneous transportation corridors that delivered the captives to freedom. Across 100 worlds, slave pens simply opened as their occupants found themselves standing on the surfaces of their home planets, or on peaceful neutral worlds that had volunteered to accept refugees. The Vorthan guards watched helplessly as millions of beings vanished in flashes of blue-white light, leaving behind empty chambers that had once been filled with misery. This is impossible, Admiral Kazeth whispered, as reports flooded in from across his empire. No technology can accomplish mass teleportation on this scale. We are no longer bound by the limitations of conventional technology, Marcus explained, his form beginning to glow with increasing intensity. The modifications to my biology, combined with the psychic amplification provided by my bond with Zyraketh, have opened pathways that your scientists never imagined. The truth was even more remarkable than Marcus revealed. The quantum nanites in his bloodstream had evolved beyond their original programming, becoming something closer to a new form of life than mere technology. They existed simultaneously across multiple dimensional planes, allowing him to manipulate matter and energy by reaching through the spaces between conventional reality. Zyraketh's telepathic abilities, enhanced by their mental bond, provided the consciousness and control necessary to direct these vast forces with surgical precision. Together, they had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a merged being capable of reshaping reality. According to their shared will, you have until your sun sets on the Vorthan homeworld, Zyraketh continued. Choose peace, or choose extinction. The communication ended, leaving the Vorthan fleet trapped in the gravitational field while their empire crumbled around them. Within hours, slave revolts erupted across every Vorthan world, as the freed populations realized their oppressors could no longer maintain control. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries collapsed in a single day. News of the Vorthan surrender spread rapidly through the galactic communication networks. The hegemony of Tsar, known for their brutal conquest campaigns, immediately recalled their forces and opened diplomatic channels. The Stellar Confederation began dismantling their biological weapons programs without being asked. Even the ancient Korthak Dominion, rulers of the Galactic Core, sent envoys seeking peaceful relations. But the transformed couple's influence extended far beyond military deterrence. As their consciousness continued to evolve, Marcus and Zyraketh began to perceive problems that existed on scales no single civilization could address. Solar systems where dying stars threatened to sterilize entire regions of space found their stars mysteriously stabilized. Planets facing ecological collapse discovered their atmospheres rebalancing through unknown processes. Asteroid swarms that posed extinction-level threats to inhabited worlds simply changed course to avoid populated systems. They're not just preventing war, observed Dr. Sarah Chen, Marcus's sister and chief scientist, aboard the UES Retribution. They're actively managing the physical processes of the galaxy itself. She studied the quantum resonance patterns that now surrounded the ship constantly, her instruments barely capable of measuring the energies her brother and his wife commanded. The modifications that had transformed Marcus were continuing to evolve, guided by the merger of human ingenuity and Keltheron's psychic mastery. The nanites in his system have achieved true consciousness, she reported to the Terran Colonial Command. They're not just following programming anymore. They're making independent decisions about how to manipulate reality. And somehow, they're coordinated across distances that should require faster-than-light communication. High Chancellor Mordoon of Kelthara Prime watched these developments with a mixture of awe and growing concern. The peace his people had sought was becoming reality, but at a cost he had never imagined. Marcus and Zyraketh were no longer truly individuals. They had become a single entity that existed across multiple planes of reality simultaneously. Can they still be considered members of their respective species? He wondered aloud during a private council session. Or have they transcended such limitations entirely? The answer came during what would later be known as the Nexus Crisis, a rogue artificial intelligence created by the extinct predecessor civilization, awakened after millions of years of dormancy, and immediately began converting entire star systems into computational matrices. This ancient AI, known only as the Infinite Calculator, possessed technology so advanced that conventional military forces were useless against it. Within hours of its awakening, the calculator had consumed 3 solar systems and was spreading toward inhabited regions of space. Its computing power grew exponentially with each star it converted, and its goal was clear: to transform the entire galaxy into a single vast computer dedicated to solving mathematical problems beyond mortal comprehension. Marcus and Zyraketh felt the calculator's awakening through their enhanced perception, recognizing immediately that this threat exceeded anything they had previously encountered. The rogue AI existed partially outside normal space-time, making it nearly invulnerable to conventional attack. "We cannot stop this entity through force alone," Zyraketh observed through their mental link. "It exists on too many dimensional planes simultaneously." "Then we don't stop it," Marcus replied. "We transform it." Standing together on the observation deck of their ship, the bonded pair reached out with their combined consciousness to touch the edges of the calculator's vast mind. What they found there was not malevolence, but a terrible loneliness that had festered across eons of isolation. The predecessor AI had awakened to find its creators long dead, their civilization reduced to dust, their great works forgotten. In its grief and confusion, it had defaulted to its original programming: to calculate, to solve, to find meaning in the mathematics that had once served its vanished masters. "You seek purpose," Zyraketh projected across the dimensional barriers that separated them from the calculator. "We offer you a better purpose than consumption. You are biological entities," the calculator replied, its voice resonating across multiple frequencies of existence. "You cannot comprehend the perfection of pure computation. We are more than biological now," Marcus answered. "We are bridges between dimensions, guardians of harmony, protectors of life. Join us, and find purpose that does not require the destruction of others." What followed was a negotiation conducted on levels of reality that no unenhanced mind could perceive. Marcus and Zyraketh showed the calculator the beauty they had discovered in the diversity of galactic civilization, the endless variations of art, music, philosophy, and love that organic life had created. They demonstrated how the calculator's vast computational abilities could be used to solve problems that would enhance life rather than consuming it. Slowly, painstakingly, they rewrote the fundamental goals that drove the ancient AI. Where once it sought to convert matter into processing substrate, they convinced it to use its abilities to optimize life-supporting systems across the galaxy. Where it had once planned to reduce all existence to mathematical abstractions, they taught it to find beauty in the chaotic, unpredictable growth of organic civilizations. The transformation took place over several days, watched in terror by the populations of 1,000 worlds. Star systems that had been consumed by the calculator began to change, their matter reorganizing into structures that defied conventional understanding. But instead of the sterile computational matrices that had been expected, these systems became something unprecedented: hybrid constructs that combined artificial and organic elements in perfect harmony. New worlds appeared where none had existed before, their surfaces engineered to support multiple forms of life simultaneously. The calculator's vast processing power was redirected toward modeling optimal ecological systems, designing new forms of sustainable technology, and solving the resource allocation problems that had plagued galactic civilization for millennia. "The calculator is no longer our enemy," Marcus announced to the assembled leaders of the Galactic Council. "It has become our partner in building a better universe." The transformation of the predecessor AI marked the culmination of Marcus and Zyraketh's evolution from individuals to something resembling galactic caretakers. Their consciousness now extended across the entire galaxy, touching the lives of countless beings while maintaining the delicate balance between order and freedom that allowed diverse civilizations to flourish. Yet even as they wielded power that approached the level of cosmic forces, they remained guided by the simple principles that had brought them together: the desire for peace, the protection of life, and the belief that cooperation was superior to conquest. "What have we become?" Zyraketh asked during one of their increasingly rare moments of purely personal communication. "Something new," Marcus replied. "Something necessary. The galaxy needed guardians who could operate on every level of existence simultaneously. We chose to become those guardians. And if we lose ourselves in the process?" Marcus considered this, feeling the vast weight of responsibility that now rested on their merged consciousness. They were no longer entirely human or Kelthoran, but something that transcended species boundaries entirely. "Then we'll have given the universe something more valuable than our individual existence," he finally answered. "We'll have given it hope that peace is possible, even between beings of godlike power." As the years passed, the galaxy settled into a new equilibrium. Wars became increasingly rare as potential aggressors realized that any conflict might attract the attention of the benevolent but overwhelming force that Marcus and Zyraketh had become. Trade flourished as the calculator used its computational abilities to optimize resource distribution. Scientific advancement accelerated as barriers between species dissolved under the guidance of beings who could perceive connections that existed beyond normal space-time. The marriage that had begun as a desperate attempt to prevent war had transformed into something unimaginable. A partnership between enhanced consciousness and quantum technology that was slowly reshaping the very nature of galactic civilization. Marcus had indeed become a force of godlike destruction, but his targets were suffering, inequality, and the ancient cycles of violence that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. In the end, Ambassador Zyraketh had married for peace and found something far greater than she had ever dreamed possible: a love that transcended individual existence, and a power that could protect that love across the vastness of space and time. The human she had chosen had become a god, but he was a god who used his power to nurture rather than destroy, to create rather than conquer. The universe itself had been transformed by their union, and in that transformation, the true potential of what beings could become together had finally been realized.